welcome to the Monday evening.
Love ball like I do. After Dark, it's a must listen.
That's where I go to get my hoops fixed.
This is Field of 68 After Dark.
Hello and welcome in to a Saturday, December 28th edition of Field of 68 After Dark. It's that time of the year, fellas, where it's like the Christmas holiday, and we're in the in between. I don't really know what day it is, if not for my After Dark schedule. So I'm very appreciative of that. But listen, we're here, and I'm glad to be here. I'm John Martin, joined tonight by Rob Dauster and, of course, Kevin Sweeney. Lighter night in college basketball, but that does not mean that big wins weren't had, because there certainly were a few that we're going to get to today here on the show. Memphis coach Penny Hardaway got one of those wins. He's going to join us at about 9:30. So make sure you all stay tuned for that. Should be a great discussion and great conversation with Penny Hardaway. But first things first, UCLA pulls off the upset against 14-ranked Gonzaga. Rob, quite controversial there at the end of the night with some foul calls that Mark Few wanted reviewed that he didn't get. But before we get into sort of the nitty-gritty, just for UCLA to bounce back, get this win, how big is this for them?
Yeah, I mean, it's big, man. It was anytime that you can get a win over a program like Gonzaga, who their numbers are only going to go up once they kind of get into WCC play and can kind of roll over some opponents. It's just another good win that you can stack on top of a win at Oregon, the neutral court win over Arizona. So it's UCLA's put together a really nice non-conference schedule. I thought it was nice that they got Eric Daly going. This is a UCLA team. It's been kind of hard to get a real feel for them, right? Like, you look at this win at, I think the win at Oregon is their really good win of the season coming into today. But beating Arizona on a neutral doesn't feel like it's as good as what the KenPom numbers say that it should be. And hanging with North Carolina on a neutral, blowing a lead there. They lost to New Mexico in Las Vegas. There were some moments that we've seen from them this season where it's kind of hard to feel like just how good this team is, right? Sweeney, we know that they're good, but it's hard to get a feel for just how good they were. And I think that this was the kind of win where you can kind of put a bow on it and say, look, this is something that's going to have a little bit of lasting and staying power when it comes to their resume on Selection Sunday.
Yeah, look, what I thought it proved, and I think we sort of knew this coming in, I think it confirmed, is that they can be elite defensively. Like, they were very disruptive to what Gonzaga wants to do. Obviously, Nembhard was really good, and Ike, when he could get position, was hard to stop. UCLA didn't have William Kyle. He's they're probably their best post defender. But they've done an incredible job all year of forcing turnovers. They forced 15 on a Gonzaga team that does not give it away very often, and then they made timely threes. Johnson's 4 threes and Eric Daly's 4 threes, and down the stretch, Gonzaga could not contain the ball and not foul. Like, UCLA did a great job of getting downhill, drawing fouls, getting to the free throw line in a game where they had single digit points in the paint. They were able to, in timely moments, whether it was Mack, whether it was Clark, who took a couple free throws, whether it was Daly, get into the paint, draw fouls, and get better looks in those timely possessions. Part of that was offense for UCLA, and part of that was their defense on the other end, making it really difficult on Gonzaga. And like that's going to have to be this identity for this UCLA team, because they're not a super explosive offensive team. Like, is their number one option kind of coming into the day is Tyler Bilodeau, right? And he was quiet today. Bilodeau was not the leading scorer at Oregon State last year, right? That tells you something about where this team is talent-wise on the offensive end. But they have just enough guys who can step up on different nights when you combine it with the defense that they can be very dangerous in the Big Ten. And so to get a win like this heading into league play, can't overstate the importance for Mick Cronin and Co.
Yeah, I thought it was really impressive they were able to get this win on a night when Dylan Andrews and Sebastian Mack both kind of struggled, right? I said this on our on the episode that we did for Christmas presents for all of these teams, that I think that the biggest key for UCLA long term, big picture, making a run in March is finding a way to get last year's version of Dylan Andrews and last year's version of Sebastian Mack, because I don't think we've really seen that so far this year. And to go up against a team whose best player is one of the best point guards in college basketball, and Ryan Nembhard, and have those guys combine. What were they, 1 for 12 from the floor? I think they combined for 3 assists in 39 minutes. To be able to get this kind of a win when those two guys are struggling was impressive. And part of it was Sky Clark showing up. I thought that he was really, really good. And he's been really good all season, better than I expected him to be. And then part of it was just the shot making, man. Like at some point, if you're going to have a guy like Kobe Johnson knock down 4 threes in the second half, and a couple of them were really tough threes, there's not much that you could do about that if you are Gonzaga. And if you have a guy like Eric Daly make the shots that he hit, that's kind of one of those things where, to a point, you just got to tip your cap. You held him to 65 points. And if I'm Gonzaga and I'm Mark Few and I'm sitting here saying we hold UCLA to 65 points, I would back us to be able to score enough points to win this game. And I think you're right, Sweeney. It was UCLA's defense really shined tonight.
Yeah, no question about that. I mean, I would just say, just coming in, I mean, there, huge talent disparity, right? Just man to man. And obviously, I like this UCLA team, the way they came back against Arizona. They were controlling the game against North Carolina there before it kind of got chaotic late. And then you sort of stamp this. This is really the way they're going to have to live. But Sweeney, I do want to bring up the end of this game because a part of me feels like Gonzaga had it kind of taken from them by the officiating there late. The idea that they wouldn't even review the and one call. I mean, there was no doubt in my mind when you look at that replay that Mack was out of his own cylinder and elbowed the defender. Like, the defender just had the misfortune of his face being in the wrong place, but he wasn't in his cylinder. If you review that, you can probably and would probably change that to an offensive foul. What were your thoughts on the fact that they didn't even go to the monitor to look at it?
Look, I don't think that the officials decided the game. I thought the officials managed the game pretty poorly, though, right? And that's a number of things. That's, there was a number of reviews, and then not to go review it in that spot, that to me was weird, right? There was, I want to say 3 or 4 reviews in that game, and then to be, elbow to the face with a critical moment like that, no monitor trip, that surprised me. I thought the flagrant 2 on Battle could have gone either way. Obviously, he's such an important piece for Gonzaga because he's really the only other guard that can go create his own shot. And I thought they missed that and put a lot of pressure on Nembhard. Gonzaga had numerous opportunities in this game. I don't think there's blame to be pointed anywhere but themselves. But I do think that was a huge call and a huge moment. And again, I don't know if it was the right call or the wrong call, but I do tend to agree with you that given how many trips they made to the monitor in the game, it was weird that they didn't even take a look at that one.
Yeah, I don't think it would have gotten overturned. And I'm going to be the last person that ever says, we need more trips to the monitor, guys. What we need in this college basketball game is to be able to have these guys go stare at a TV screen for 3 minutes.
But you got to get it right in the deciding stages of the game, though. Like, so you got to at least make the attempt.
I don't think that they got it wrong. Like, if you go back and you watch it, I don't think that you call a foul there, but I also don't think that it's something where you give a flagrant 1 or say that this is an offensive foul. It's just one of those things where the guy leaned in, there was contact. It was not the contact that I think you would have expected, right? If you were just the way that you saw it live and the way that you saw it happen quickly. But I don't think that that's something where you got to give it was Sebastian Mack, right? I don't think it's something where you have to give Sebastian Mack a flagrant 1 on that. It's not like there was no pivot there. He just went up to try to draw the contact, just so happened that the elbow made contact to the head.
Well, it was a bad call, though. It was just a shitty call. Like, I mean, in that moment, I thought it was just a shitty call because all he did was get elbowed in the face. I mean, what's he supposed to do?
Yeah, no, you're not wrong on that one. I thought the flagrant 2 on Khalif Battle was just egregious, man. Like, it's so clear what happened there. He bit on a pump fake, right? He jumped higher than any of those referees have ever jumped in their entire life. His legs got taken out from under him because of the way that his body was getting carried, and he felt his momentum go over, and all he could do was grab onto whatever he could grab onto to keep himself from falling. It's just a natural human reaction. It just so happened what he grabbed onto was Eric Daly's neck and shoulder as Eric Daly was trying to elevate. So it looked a lot worse than it actually was. right? It was just one of those things where you get caught in the air and sometimes you get stuck and you grab onto what you grab. But that's not a flagrant two to me. Like a flagrant two has got to be reserved for the kind of thing where you're trying to injure somebody or you're throwing a punch or you're getting in a fight, right? It's not something where somebody's falling and it just so happens to be a play like that. I thought that was egregious. And to your point, Sweeney, like that's, to me, more than the call at the end of the game, that changed this basketball game because you lost the guy that could go out there and get you 20 and a half. We've seen Battle do it for Gonzaga this year. We saw him get 45 multiple times last year for Arkansas. We know what he is as a scorer. He's so important to Gonzaga's offense because a lot of what they do is they run their flow and they try to get Nembhard coming off ball screens and they try to get those duck-ins for Graham Ike and Braden Huff. And when that breaks down, they don't really have another guy that can go get something out of nothing. If you're relying on Nembhard to do that, he can, but that's not really what he's best at, right? So you took away the guy that could kind of end possessions for Gonzaga deep in the clock. And when you're going up against a program like UCLA that guards the way that they guard, you need a guy like that. So that's the one that I'd be pissed about if I was a Gonzaga fan. The other one was just a tough call. It didn't go your way. That happens. Going to the monitor and throwing Khalif Battle out of the game for that is, I can't get behind that one, man.
Yeah. For Gonzaga, you know, Sweeney, we're texting, you know, all season throughout these games, and first game of the season, you know, when we don't really know what Baylor is quite yet. I'm ready to bet Gonzaga to win the championship, right? Like I'm ready to go crazy with it. And as the season has gone on, I mean, not that these are necessarily bad losses, right? But they have taken a few of these, and they don't quite look like the world beaters that they did that first night of the season against Baylor. What's your sort of assessment of Gonzaga, who they are, and kind of their last, 2 to 3 weeks?
It's hard to call them anything other than disappointing. Like from where they were, from what their ceiling was, from what they brought back from a year ago, right? Like you bring back Ike and Nembhard and you add some role players around them, like the floor should be absurdly high. And I know we judge Gonzaga on an impossible standard, right? Because it's title or bust every year somehow right. For this group. And that's not fair necessarily, but to have 4 losses, all be games that you could have and maybe should have won at points. I mean, UConn probably the only game I would say that they shouldn't have won based on the way the game was played. You know, it's a disappointment. And because they're not going to have a ton of opportunities. Now, the WCC is better than it's been, but you're not going to have a ton of opportunities to build this resume. Like, you're going to head in the NCAA tournament and your best win's going to be home Baylor and neutral Indiana. Like that's not appealing. I guess at San Diego State's going to age pretty well. I know they lost today, but it's a good win. Like this resume is going to be soft by Gonzaga standards, and that's concerning. And it's going to knock them down seed lines. It's going to make their path harder if they want to win a championship. Like I still believe their ceiling is there to do that. Like I think the best version of Gonzaga, and we've seen that at points, right? The first half against Kentucky was phenomenal. The game against Baylor was phenomenal. But the way they've closed games for a team as old and experienced as this group is, it's really been surprising and disappointing in my eyes.
Yeah, disappointing is a little bit harsh for me because, I mean, if you look at it, they lost in overtime to West Virginia. They lost in overtime to Kentucky. They lost in what was basically a road game against UConn, and they lost in what was a de facto road game in LA against UCLA, right? So we're not talking about a team that is out here losing games where you really have to be worried about them, right? These are all winnable games, and they're all games where they were against top 50 opponents on Ken Palm, and games they had a very much a chance to win. My concern would be this, is that when you think of this Gonzaga team, the first thing that you think about is their point guard, Ryan Nembhard, right? And when you think about teams that have great point guard play, you would expect great decision-making down the stretch, and you would expect situations where they're getting good shots in timely moments, and they're not making mistakes on possessions where they have a chance to win a basketball game. And I think about, the blown, they were up, 5 with 25 seconds left against West Virginia in the Bahamas, and they couldn't win that game. You think about the missed free throw from Nembhard and like that, the shot from 60 feet with 4 seconds left on the clock tonight, right? You think about the way that they executed down the stretch against Kentucky. The whole point of having great point guard play is that you're able to execute down the stretch. And that has not happened in the biggest games that they've played this year. That has not happened in the closest games that they've played this year. And that is the thing that I'm concerned about. It's not so much, dropping down in terms of what seed they'd be on is something that's probably going to happen. And Gonzaga's dealt with that before, right? It's not something new that they've had to deal with. But I do think that it's a concern to me long term that a team with one of the best point guards in college basketball continues to lose close games because of some execution stuff down the stretch. That's something that I would be a little bit, if I'm a Gonzaga fan, I'm a little bit worried about.
And it's not just that. I would just add, it's not just having the point guard play. It's the fact that they have 3 legitimate good to great big men, and they're massive, right? And they're huge guys. And I know, Ike obviously has the foul, but when you have even one good big man in college basketball, it's supposed to be a huge edge, like almost unquantifiable, right? And they have 3. So that's why I kind of lean more towards Sweeney here in terms, again, it's Mark Few. We know what they're going to be. They're going to be in the tournament. They have the talent to make a run. But I think, Sweeney, when you have that combination, right, that combination of profile of player, like you're leaving money on the table, not maximizing these games.
Yeah, look, it's not to me that they're worse than I thought they'd be. It's that their record says they're a worse team than I thought they'd be, and that hurts. Like, and I think Dauster and I are probably on more similar footing than we think. Like, it's not just Nembhard. It's they start 5 seniors. They have real continuity. I think they had the second highest high major minutes continuity from a year ago. I'd have to look at the number to check, but I think it's one of the highest in the country. Like the second in the country in minutes continuity per KenPom. Like the fact that over and over, they're the team that's struggling late game with a Hall of Fame coach, with an elite point guard, with a big you can throw it to any time on the block and he can go get you a shot. Like it's just sort of baffling. And I want to believe that it's all going to figure itself out, and that we're going to look up in March when they've won 19 of their last 20 and say, man, this is a team that I don't want to see. And I think there's a good chance that's where we are. But these results and the way that they've closed games is going to have to stick in your mind when you're filling out a bracket on Selection Sunday, because there's no excuses for how they've closed some of these games here in the last month.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
Yeah. Okay. Penny Hardaway going to join us in just a little bit around 9:30. We'll talk to him about the huge win that he got at home over Ole Miss earlier today. But real quick before we go to break, Louisville survives, Rob. Louisville survives. It's a rivalry game, right? You start getting these regional games, man. They're spooky. Memphis tripped up against Arkansas State. It happens. But Louisville does survive. And just in terms of their outlook, in terms of their landscape, they're obviously dealing with a lot of injuries, a lot of guys out. What are the vibes around Louisville right now?
I mean, they're probably not great, right? You're missing your best player in Kason Pryor, and you're missing maybe your most important guy off the bench, and I would say one of your 2 or 3 best players in Corin Johnson. You finally got Kadir Traore back from the broken arm, and he let me just make sure I got this right. He played all of 5 minutes tonight. He was the guy that was supposed to start for him. So good news, congratulations! You got one of the 3 starters that you were missing back, and he played 5 minutes tonight. At least they finally have like an 8th and 9th man in their rotation, right? Like it's hard for me to make any sweeping generalizations about what Louisville is versus what they were expected to be versus what I hoped that they were going to be this season, because they've just lost so much. Like the way that I think about it is, let's say you took Alex Caravan and Terrace Reed off of UConn, what would you expect them to be this season, right? If you took like a Lamont Butler and I don't know, Andrew Carr off of Kentucky, what would you expect them to be this season? It's when you lose 2 guys that are that important and influential in what you do, it's very hard to be able to play at the level that you maybe expected. And yeah, I was probably a little bit bullish on them compared to the rest of the country, but I think if you give them Kason Pryor and Corin Johnson and you don't have Kadir Traore missing the time that he missed, I would say that this is probably a top 30 to 35 team on KenPom, and I think that's what everybody kind of expected them to be coming into the season. So obviously hasn't gone the way that I think everybody wanted it to go, but I don't know what else you're supposed to do when you have the amount of injuries that they've had to deal with so far this year.
Yeah, look, the good news is they found a way, right? And found a way against UTEP, found a way in this game.
They just fought hard. They fought so hard.
Shout out Terrence Edwards, though, 19 plus in 5 straight games. If this Louisville team has any chance of making some noise in the ACC, staying in that NCAA tournament conversation, which is going to be hard, but it's doable with the way the league is. I think it starts with Terrence Edwards becoming that legit alpha scorer to go with Chucky Hepburn in backcourt.
Got a lot more to come here on tonight's episode of Field of 68 After Dark, including we're going to catch up with Penny Hardaway And we're going to ask him, is he enjoying shutting up some people on this network? I mean, he's 10-3, fourth toughest schedule in all of America. Got to be a little bit of that. We'll talk to him about it a little bit later. Stick around. You're watching Field of 68 After Dark.
If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM for the season. We'll be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using the bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets. Go download the BetMGM app and use the code FIELD today. Now that college basketball season is back in full swing, I need to remind you guys about our partners over at Autograph, where the real college hoops fans reside. The Autograph app curates all of the best content for every sports fan and every sports fan's favorite team. Podcasts, blogs, analysis. It's all there without the nonsense from the talking heads that don't actually watch the games. And there's a bonus. Consuming content on the Autograph app earns you coins that can be redeemed for rewards for things like no-fee tickets or signed jerseys from your favorite players. There are a couple new features in the app that I need to let you guys know about as well. Autograph Replay gives you a quick-hitting summary of the previous day's news so you can keep track of all the important things going on with your favorite teams. And Autograph Rooms allows you to chat in real time with the true voices of fandom within your team's community. So go to the link in the description or scan that QR code on your screen and download the Autograph app.
Dark Saturday, December 28th edition of the show. I'm John Martin, joined tonight by Rob Dauster, Kevin Sweeney. In just a little bit, we're going to be joined by Memphis basketball coach Penny Hardaway, who got a convincing win and one that he really needed to get earlier today inside FedEx Forum. Just a real wire-to-wire handling of Ole Miss, and Memphis gets through its non-conference schedule with a 10-3 mark. They'll almost certainly be back in the AP Top 25 on Monday. They already jumped up several spots at KenPom. I'm expecting the same at the net. Rob, before we get to Penny, just how critical was this win for him to try to polish off this non-conference before you enter the complete wilderness that is the AAC?
Well, look, it was their last chance to get a quad one win, right? Like, I don't think they have another quad one opportunity left on their schedule. So in that sense, yes, it was really important. But let's not diminish what they've done already this year. Like, they got a win over UConn on a neutral court. That thing is going to have some legs. They got a win over Michigan State, which, according to KenPom, is actually their best win this season. They won at Clemson. They won at Virginia. So, like, win this game or not, they're still going to end up being a team where as long as they don't do something stupid in AAC play, which like they're capable of doing because we saw them do it last year, I think that they're going to be fine. This win, what it does more than anything else is it kind of puts them in a position where you might be able to get yourself a seed that ends up being one where you can do something more than like win a game, right? Like if you go, let's just say they go 16-2 in AAC play, right? You're heading into the tournament with 5, maybe 6 losses. And you have wins over UConn, you have wins over Michigan State, you have wins over Missouri at UNLV, a neutral court, basically a road game at San Francisco, which is a quad one win right now. I think you look at that and you kind of say, okay, this could be a team that could get like a 4 seed, a 3 or a 4 seed. I don't think that that's out of the question right now. And when you're ranked there, when you're seated there, you actually got a chance to be able to make some noise. And the thing about this roster is, I think that he actually has a team built for March, right? You got a guard in Tyrese Hunter that we've seen take over games. And you got a guard in Colby Rogers that we've seen take over games. He did it today. And you got a guard in PJ Haggerty, who's actually your best player that can take over games, but he does it by getting to the foul line, which is like, okay, it's one thing if you're someone that can knock down 4, 5, 6, 7 threes in a game, right? But that's a little bit streaky. When you're like Haggerty's going to get to the line no matter what game he plays. He's going to get his points no matter what happens. You can kind of circle him and say, okay, we're going to get somewhere between 17 and 23 points from this guy every single night. And when you have a dude like that kind of gives you that floor, I think it's huge. The other thing I'll say is this. If I'm Penny, I am telling him that Chris Beard is the coach for every single team. I'm telling Moussa Cisse that Chris Beard is a coach for every single team that we play for the rest of the year. Because I don't think it's a coincidence that the team that Moussa Cisse played for last year in Ole Miss is the team that they played tonight. And he had by far, I think it was probably, John, you could correct me if I'm wrong here. In his 2 stints at Memphis, this was by far the best game he's ever played. Like, this is the guy that we all thought that he was going to be for 5 years when he was at Memphis, and we committed as a 5-star. What, 13 points, 11 rebounds, 4 blocks. He had at least 3 posters that I saw watching the game. If you can get that,
made his free throws, made his free throws. He did it all.
If you get Sweeney, if you get that Musa Cisse every single game, we are talking about a different ceiling for what this group can be. Just put Chris Beard, like, find a way to hire a designer. I don't care what it is. Get someone to do Photoshop. Just put Chris Beard's face on every single roster that you play against, and you're going to get this Musa Cisse every single night. That was awesome. What a performance from him.
He was incredible, and it changes their ceiling, obviously offensively, but defensively, like what he can do for them, because it lets their guards be so aggressive on the ball. And they were really disruptive, didn't let Ole Miss do anything they wanted to do offensively. I would also shout out Dane Danger. Like, he was really productive in his minutes, 16 points on 7 shots. If they can score efficiently around the rim with their bigs, you have Haggerty getting to the free throw line, and you have Rogers as a flamethrower from beyond the arc. Like, watch out. That's a scary recipe. I mean, Memphis wasn't just better than Ole Miss. They fully outclassed Ole Miss today. And we know the highs and lows come with this Memphis team, and they've played to the level of their competition a little bit. But there's no question that the highs are high enough to absolutely dream about more than just win a game in March, right? They have the wins to say that this can be a Sweet 16, Elite 8, maybe even a Final 14. So, yeah, that has to be what you're dreaming about. That has to be what you're thinking about right now. And you've done the work in the non-conference to set yourself up to have an opportunity to do just that, assuming they take care of business in league play.
Penny's going to join us in just a few minutes. But, I think what kind of gets lost, Rob, from a national, because there's a million teams and there's a million games and people forget. But I think people probably don't realize just how close this Memphis team has actually been under Penny. They were up 10 on Gonzaga at halftime, in 21-22. They were an uncharacteristic Kendrick Davis turnover away from beating FAU and almost certainly going to the Sweet 16, a sequence of events that frankly I've never gotten over and maybe we'll never get over. But Rob, Memphis has been this close under Penny. And I think that's kind of where the frustration lies, right? It's like he gets the players, he gets close, and then for one reason or another, it has not, materialized. But it and we'll talk to him about it. But it feels like this could be the time finally where it will come together.
Yeah, and I would say that in 2021, right, that was a year where they did not make the NCAA tournament. I think that was the NIT year, right? But they were very clearly one of the top. They did not have. It was the weird COVID season, so they did not have the resume to deserve in that large bid. But anybody with eyeballs understood that watching that team, they were a top 30 team in America by the end of the year. 2022 was the Imani Bates year where they had a disastrous start to the season, and Penny benched Imani and figured out what he was doing with Jalen Duren. And by the end of the season, they were very clearly one of the top 25 teams in college basketball, right? I think everybody had them as a threat to knock off that Gonzaga team, and rightfully so. Yep. The year after that, with the FAU win, I mean, look, if that breaks a different way, we're not talking about Dusty May as a Final Four coach. Maybe Dusty May's not in Michigan. Maybe there's a Twilight Zone episode that we need to do about what happens if Memphis actually wins that game, right? And I know everyone wants to talk like it'll get thrown in his face until they actually perform in the AAC this year. But the way that they kind of collapsed down the stretch last season, but I felt like that was more of a team chemistry thing than anything else. So, Absolutely. John, you know this, man. I've been on your radio show in Memphis talking about this plenty. I'm in on Penny Hardaway as a coach. I think that he's done I don't want to say a great job, but I think he's done a really good job with what this program is. They don't have the results yet, and we'll see. Maybe this is the year that they finally get there.
Well, a win tonight certainly is a big step towards doing that, 87-70, and with that, he's here. Memphis basketball coach Penny Hardaway again, 87-70 over Ole Miss. Okay, got it. We're working on it, but listen, another angle that we have not touched on from this game, and by name, is Kobe Rogers. I mean, 28, 6 of 9 from 3. That level of shot making, because we talk about Tyrese, we talk about PJ Haggerty, but when you get 3-point shooting like that, Sweeney, it could also be, the difference in a run and not.
Yeah, and nobody needed holiday break more than him. Go 0 for 12 leading in the Virginia and Mississippi State games. And sometimes a week off is the best thing in the world for a guy. And he was locked in. Colby Rogers is one of the best shooters in the country. Like, he is a dynamic shot maker. And you're 100% right that he can change a game, right? And sometimes it's going to be hot and sometimes it's going to be cold. But him at his best, there's not a lot of other guys in the country I'd want taking the three, because when he's made a couple, that hoop starts looking real big for Colby Rogers, and it looked pretty darn big today.
Yeah, like, think about this, John. Think about this. The third best guard on your roster is a guy that goes for 28 against the number 16 team in America, right? The third best guard on your roster has 22 and win at number 16 Clemson. Maybe they just need to play the number 16 team. Penny just needs to set it up so they only play the number 16 team in America for the rest of the year. That's what it's got to be. They'll go undefeated. But that's the number 3 option that you have on your perimeter. When he can win you games. He is a game changer, and he's your third best guard. Like, that is a wealth of options. And hand up, I'll say it right now. Like, I thought that they were going to be better than maybe the consensus. I did not see them having this many takeover options in their backcourt. That it's kind of a pick your poison kind of situation when you got to deal with some of those guards.
Yeah, I mean, and again, I think, to that point, I mean, Tyrese Hunter, I know Chris Beard was complimentary after the game, because he coached him and he knows him really well. This was far from Tyrese's best. We've seen his best in Maui, and the fact that he can only have 4 points impact the game, but you also have, Kobe who can step up and shoot it as well as he can, and that's the thing about this year is if you sort of just took me back to the summer, I mean, I knew the sort of floor was going to be high enough with the talent, right? But you just didn't know how it would all come together, and it's come together in a beautiful way, and Penny Hardaway is certainly responsible for that. He joins us now here on Field of 68 After Dark. Coach, we got you. Coach, can you hear us? Hey, what's going on, Coach? Thanks for the time as always. Congrats on the win tonight, man.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys having me.
So you schedule this non-conference schedule like you have to do, right? You know what's going to be waiting for you in AAC play. It's a top 5 toughest schedule in America. If I tell you in October you're going to be 10-3 when it's all said and done, what are you going to say?
I'll say I'll take it. I mean, you don't get a break. I mean, I guess what a lot of people don't understand about this schedule is just it's so grueling. It's like I played in the NBA when you had to have 4 games in 5 nights. It was like 4 games in 5 nights. Take off 3 days and have 4 games in 5 nights again, because every game from Ohio to La Tech to San Francisco to UNLV, even Arkansas State beat us. All these games, you got to really lock in and play a tough game every single night. And obviously, we have to have it that way because no one respects the AAC, and we haven't done a great job in our non-conference scheduling across the board. But it's grueling, man. I was saying 10-3, I would have been ecstatic, because going 11-2 last year, I think we superseded that this year with the teams that we played.
Yeah, Coach. I mean, from a player's standpoint, how much did you stress how important it was to get off to the start you guys have this season? That your season would be defined by November and December in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I mean, I expressed that a lot. I think a lot of the guys on this team obviously haven't won. There's only been 2 players that have won on this team, and that's Dane Danger and Tyrese Hunter. That experienced Sweet 16s. Dane Danger was at Baylor when they won a national championship, and obviously he's been to Elite Eights and Sweet 16s at Illinois, so he understands how it goes. No one else does. I don't know. Obviously, Coach Davis knows, Mike Davis and Nolan Smith know, but as far as the team, from June until now, it was always our season is November and December. Not that we're disrespecting the conference, but as far as the seeding part of what we wanted.
Coach, you got 13 points, 11 rebounds, 3 blocks from Musa Cisse tonight. I know you've now recruited him twice, one of the rare players that you recruit twice to bring to the program. And I made the argument earlier. I think this was the best game that he's played at Memphis. How do you get this performance out of him moving forward?
Well, I've been working with he and Dane a lot. Like, I've been personally, the time that we've had in practice and we split ends, I'm probably spending 45 minutes a day with just those two. I've kind of neglected the guards and allowed Jermaine Johnson and Nolan Smith to go with the guards, so they work those guys out. But I only have Musa and Dane myself, and I purposely gotten them to just be way better at things that we're going to need them to be better at. And it showed today. Obviously, he didn't need extra motivation against Ole Miss, but the things that he's doing, even the Ole Miss coaches were like, what have you done with him? And it's basically just giving him confidence. But I'm in the gym during practice hours and after practice, just putting the hours in with him and Dane, and it pays off. And that's definitely his best game in the Memphis uniform.
Penny, obviously, you know, I cover you in Memphis and have covered you since you got the job. So I know that you have a certain type of expectations, right? I mean, you recruit a certain type of player that you feel like I shouldn't have to like babysit you. This is a professional environment. Like you should know what your expectations are. But you talked about, you know, before this one, after the Mississippi State loss, that maybe you had to like get out of character a little bit this week. I'm just wondering like what that looks like, and then is it something that you can just keep doing, you know, as you get into conference play, man?
I think obviously we had the debacle like I described last year with, you know, winning all these games non-conference and then, you know, going into a lull in the conference. So when we lost Auburn, you know, that was the third day in a row fatigue. Coming back against Arkansas State, there was just a lack of respect, and Arkansas State spanked as much respect to them. But I knew the guys were tired because when we got back from Virginia, we got in at like 1:30 a.m. The guys probably got to sleep maybe 2:30 or 3. We had a team event at 11 o'clock at the Kroc Center. And after the Kroc Center event, we had about a 45-minute practice, and then they had an NIL event. So the next day at the FedEx Forum, we had a practice for about 2 hours. Probably one of our worst practices. The guys they didn't look the same, and I'm not really registering because I'm thinking we got Mississippi State coming. We have to win this game. And then because the practice was so bad, we woke up at 7 a.m., 6 o'clock a.m. the next morning of the early game, and we did a walkthrough in the Forum, and I think that was a lot. And then we get this huge crowd, and Mississippi State is coming in like, all right, they took us out of the top 25 for you guys, and they were like way, way more energy. So in that game, it pissed me off because we just didn't fight. Even though we were tired, we didn't fight. So all week long, I was an asshole. I was. It didn't matter who it was. If you weren't doing it at a certain level, then I was, you know, in your face, and it was ugly. And to answer your question about the conference, if it takes that again, it definitely will happen. The guys just have to understand that you just can't have a letdown because our season, it are those 13 games, and then you got to go in the conference and then start it all over again.
Coach, so much, you know, excitement and production from your newcomers, your portal guys. But Nick Jourdain, your returner, had 8 points, 8 rebounds, 6 assists today, 3 blocks, sort of the epitome of a glue guy. What has he meant to your team coming back in year 2?
No, he's meant a lot. I think Nick kind of lost his way a little bit because he had an identity crisis. He wanted to shoot more threes, and he stopped being the utility guy. I had a great talk with him yesterday about coming into the game and being who I recruited him to be, and then not search out threes so much, but be that guy that could almost have a triple-double. And he came out in the game and did it. It wasn't hard for him to switch. He understood what I meant. And what he means to our team from last year to this year is he's the guy that can almost average a triple-double every night because he's just so good at doing so much, guarding 1 through 5, pushing the fast break, getting offensive rebounds, defensive rebounds, and rim protecting as well. So I've challenged him in all those areas.
Coach, you guys have taken some criticism in recent years, partly from one of the members of this show. I think that you have an opportunity here to be able to quiet a lot of people and quiet a lot of doubters that have maybe had questions about your tenure at Memphis. How important is it to be able to put together the run that you need here in the AAC to get yourself in a position to make a run in March? Because I think you've done a lot of stuff at Memphis, right? The one thing you haven't done is get to that second weekend of the NCAA tournament. How do you get there this year?
Yeah, I think, you know, me personally, I understand everybody has a job to do. And I didn't, you know, John has every right to feel the way he feels because, you know, he's a basketball guy. You guys understand the game. And I came in as a newbie, and I really thought it was going to be much easier than what it was because I knew the game. I knew I was going to work. And my biggest problem was kind of the culture. My culture was never really good up until this year. And I failed at a lot of things, and it frustrated me because I thought that it was going to be better. and the criticism was warranted. All I did was just try to suck it up and go, okay, you know what you can do. I went out and got a staff that I was very comfortable with and that allowed me to be me. And with them allowing me to be me and rallying around me, it's allowed me to not be as stressful and as stressed out while learning on the job. Because when you come into this business, if you hadn't been an assistant coach before, if you don't know what this is really like, I hired a lot of new guys. We were all just kind of looking at each other like, how are we going to fix this? And it just took experience and it took time. So this year, with having what happened to us last year, and having the staff fully behind me, then I feel like the guys are listening to me and they don't have a soft landing. They don't have anyone to run to get that soft landing, and they have to really just come and talk to me. And the relationship that I have with all my guys now are so genuine because they have to come to me because my coaches are going to go meet with coach, go talk to coach. And when I'm coaching, I'm allowed to coach and it not be frowned upon or anything like that. So for me now, I'm so much more comfortable in my 7th year that having that support and having all the guys at full attention gives me to be a better coach and to lead us into that second round of the NCAA tournament. And I have the team. If you got multiple guys that can get a basket like Kobe Rogers, Tyrese Hunter, and PJ Haggerty, that gives you an advantage as well. And then if Musa and Dane continue to play the way that they play, and Nick is Nick, you only need a couple other guys to just add in there, man, and you can make a hell of a run. I mean, we've seen that over the years.
Yeah, I was going to say, Coach, that you said earlier you spend a lot of time with the big guys, right? Well, you don't really need to spend that much time with the guards when you got PJ Haggerty doing what he's doing, and you got Kobe Rogers shooting the way that he's been shooting, and Tyrese taking over games.
Yeah, I mean, Nolan and Jermaine do a great job, but you're right. I got those guys for that reason because I knew that they were going to be able to dominate out there on the court. 2 of those guys are always going to be in a position to do something great. And if all 3 are on, then we're really hard to beat.
And then last thing, Penny, I want to kind of go back to what Rob talked about because, you know, in the game of college basketball and just the way it works, right? At the pro level, Penny Hardaway, member of the Orlando Magic, if he has a shitty game, he's gonna get blamed for that, right? Not the coach. It's gonna go to the player. In college, that all falls to the coach. Like win, lose, or draw, like the coach gets the credit, the coach gets the blame. So we talk about a preseason where CBS Sports has a headline that says, "Is this the end of the road for Penny Hardaway?" There was an episode on this network about hot seat. And your name came up. Now I said you aren't, and you weren't, but again, that was a discussion that was being had. So when it is about you, the coach, do you think that this 10-3 start changes those narratives? Do you have to wait until the postseason? Like just take me through that thought process.
For me personally, you know, wins are great to position you to be great in the long run. So when I look at these really great coaches, they work themselves up to a position to where they started getting 1, 2, and 3 seeds. And there's nothing easy about the NCAA tournament, but those are kind of like cakewalks to the Sweet 16. When you really look at how the dynamics work, and a lot of these coaches have already earned that. Like they can lose 6 games in a season, 7, 8, 9 games in the season, still get a 2 or 3 seed and make it to a Sweet 16. For me and for Memphis, because we're at the bottom of the barrel, I have to work twice as hard because we're going to be an 8 or 9 seed. And you understand what that means. You play a really hard game the first round, and then you play the number 1 overall seed in that region in the second round. So we played Gonzaga after we had just beaten Houston. The number 1 overall seed, they took the number overall seed from Houston, and we had to go to Portland 3 time zones away. We beat a great Boise State team, and then we had Gonzaga down 13, and then Drew Timme came alive, and they beat us in the second half by like 5, whatever it was. The next time, it was with Kendrick Davis. We had to go to Columbus, and Purdue was the number 1 overall seed. We had to play FAU first, who was a really good team. We had to lead. We lose the game, but the next round would have been Purdue if Fairleigh Dickinson doesn't beat them. So the seeding part, that's why we're playing a tough non-conference, because we're trying to show the nation that we can play with anybody to get their respect of saying, does Memphis, are they deserving of, we'll never get a 1, 2, or 3 seed unless we just go undefeated in the non-conference. But going into the AAC, getting a 4 or 5 seed is better than an 8 or 9 seed, and we're fighting for that. And that gives you an opportunity to really have a couple days to win first round, second round, and get to a Sweet 16. Some of these teams don't have to do that because their conferences are so strong and they have the history of going to the NCAA tournament. they're gifted things that maybe they don't deserve all the time because of their history of going to the tournament. So I'm understanding that as well. But for me overall, I feel like this team, by listening to me and the staff behind me, that we have an opportunity to make it to the second round. But I think the days of 20 wins and having some big signature wins are out of the door when it comes to me. I don't know about everybody else, but every coach is going, man, you won over 20 games a year with all these hard non-conference scheduling. This is not cupcake wins. These are wins against the top guys. And then you might not do as well in conference, but you're winning 20 plus wins every year. I don't know what that really means, but for me, I think the second round of the NCAA is reasonable for me as I get into where I'm going, because I really want to get there, and I have the team that can do it.
Well, it certainly looks like it. 13 games in. Coach, appreciate the time. Congrats on the season, man. Thanks.
You know, I appreciate you.
Thanks,
man. Thank
Coach.
you. All right.
Thanks,
Yes,
Penny.
sir. That is Memphis basketball coach Penny Hardaway. Candid as always. You know, he's been a different guy. He's been a different guy, certainly.
Hey,
you know,
John,
this season.
that might, I think that was the best interview we've done on the show this year. Like, that was awesome. The answer that he
That's
had
all-
about
That's all Penny.
Yeah,
That's all him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that was awesome, man.
By the way, he was like, he thought you were talking about me. You were talking about Goodman. You know, I'm like, damn, I caught it straight. Now I have been critical, but you know, again, that isn't necessarily on the national stage. Goodman
will
slipped
say-
out of that one somehow.
I will just say, man, you don't know if he meant John Martin or if he just thinks that Goodman's first name is John, because there's a lot of
That
people
is
that
true.
think Jeff
That
Goodman
is
is
true.
actually John Goodman.
That is true. I did consider that. And shout out to John Goodman indeed. That was great stuff with Penny Hardaway. Look, a few more things to get to. We're going to come back and wrap this up here on a Saturday, December 28th edition. Utah State. What a win for them in the Mountain West. Get to that and more. You're watching Field of 68 After Dark.
Now that the college basketball season is in full swing, you need to make sure that you have access to the best betting tool on the market, the Rhythm app. Spelled RITHMM, is a data-backed app that uses AI and analytics to identify inefficiencies in betting lines and the player prop market that will allow you, the user, to profit. You can create customized, analytics-driven betting models tailored to your personal preferences as a bettor. Users have access to up-to-the-second against the spread data. And if you're like me and you understand pictures better than numbers on a screen, Rhythm's internal trend analysis provides you with the kind of graphs that will allow you to evaluate past results and project future performance in a visual way. Every Division I college basketball team is included in the Rhythm's metrics. Free subscribers to the Field of 68 Daily will get 25% off for a Rhythm subscription. Use the QR code on the screen to sign up or download at the link in the description.
Welcome back, Field of 68 After Dark here on a Saturday, December 28th edition of the show. I'm John Martin, joined tonight by Rob Dauster and Kevin Sweeney. Just talked to Penny Hardaway for, 15, 20 minutes. It was good stuff. So if you missed it, make sure you catch that, on the replay. But there were some other big games that happened in college basketball, in the college basketball universe. Kevin, I know for an absolute fact you were locked into this one. Utah State gets the win over San Diego State. Listen, a year ago, man, it was like a 10 commandment, one of the 10 commandments. Mountain West teams did not lose at home, right? Like, it was just the best home court in the world. And obviously San Diego State goes down today. This Utah State team for real? I mean, what do we make of Utah State, Kevin?
Yeah, I think they're 100% for real. I mean, you don't go on the road to St. Mary's and San Diego State in the span of 7 days and win both of them if you are not a team that isn't just good enough to make the NCAA tournament, but make some serious noise in the NCAA tournament. I mean, their guards with Mason Falslev and Ian Martinez are phenomenal. And the way that they defend, Jared Calhoun brought with him a kind of funky matchup zone that one of his opponents in the Horizon League, Northern Kentucky, used to run. And it has really worked wonders. I mean, defensively was really a concern point for him at Youngstown State. They're a top 40 defense in the country right now in KenPom. They're 12-1. They have some legit wins: neutral Iowa, neutral St. Bonaventure, neutral North Texas, and now these 2 road wins. Can't say enough about it. And a shout out to Tucker Anderson, who made the big 3 to give them the lead down the stretch. I saw, in the press conference, Coach Calhoun mentioned that Tucker's mom was in the hospital this week, and they weren't sure whether he was even going to play or whether he had the confidence to take shots like that. And he stepped up and made a big shot in an incredible moment. So certainly thinking of his mom, but an incredible shot by him in one of the toughest road environments in the country.
Yeah, and it wasn't just a win, guys. We're burying the lead here. They were down 40-22 at one point late in the first half and closed the half on a 10-3 run, and then obviously outscored them by 12 in the second half. But when you're one, you don't go into San Diego State and beat them. Like, that just doesn't really happen, right? And 2, you especially don't do it when you're down by 18 points at one point. Like, I was definitely one of the people that thought that this Utah State team had a chance to be good this year, but I wasn't expecting them to be able to put together the kind of run where it looks like they could compete for the Mountain West Championship, right? Like, I think San Diego State and New Mexico, before today, I would have said that those are probably going to end up being the top 2 teams that compete for the title. And I mean, look, how do you not put Utah State in there? How do you not put them above those 2, right? Mason Falslev is a baller too, man. He made so many big plays defensively. Him and Ian Martinez, I think part of what makes them so dangerous, guys, and I don't know if you agree with this, Sweeney, is that when they run that matchup zone, it's a little bit like what Syracuse used to do, where they would just go out and try to get as many like 6'6" guards as they could find and 7-foot wings and just have a monster at the rim and just put as much length and athleticism around a 7-footer at the rim that you possibly could. And it just mucked up everything you try to do offensively. And it's kind of like what they're doing here when you have Falslev and Ian Martinez out there. Just those guys create so much havoc, and there's so much length, and it's hard. I don't think people, I wonder, I don't know how many people that are just part of the general public realize how difficult it is to go up against the zone when you're used to running offense against the man, especially when it's one of the, I don't want to call it like a junk zone, right? That's not the right way to phrase it, but it's when you play those matchup zones, it's a little bit similar to like what Florida State used to do, where it effectively it's a man-to-man when somebody's guarding you, but you can't run your offense against it because it's more or less everybody's switching everything. So it's again, a really, really difficult defense to play against. And I think we kind of saw that today in the second half.
Yeah. And one thing to close the book on Utah State. Sorry, John. They were without their starting point guard today, Drake Allen, a really important piece of their team. They had a true freshman walk-on, Jordy Barnes, play 22 minutes at point guard on the road at San Diego State, trailed by 18 and won the game. Like, this team has some stones, man. Like,
he didn't just play. Give Jordy his flowers. He had 7 assists.
He was awesome.
Should we give BJB some credit for this? I think he was trying to take some credit in the group chat that he discovered Jordy Barnes. No. You tell me. I don't know, Sweetie. I don't know what his angle was, but
I don't think Jeff Barzell could pick Jordy Barnes out of the lineup.
I can't believe you just called him that nickname publicly too.
That's what I call him. Man. I don't know. I don't even know what it means. I truly don't. I missed the inside joke, but I just call him that because it seems to work. All right. We asked about, we asked if Utah State is for real. A couple of other legitimate. We got to judge. I don't know what BJB means. All right. I'm being told we're not worried about these teams. Executive decision, both not for real. We'll revisit them at a later date. Jim Larinaga is stepping down. He's calling it a career, and like everybody else, he's blaming NIL. I don't. In terms of the job itself, how good of a job is it, Rob?
In terms of Miami, man, like it's so hard to evaluate what a good job is in college basketball right now, because like how much of it depends on what you're able to bring in terms of NIL and what you're able to pay players, right? Like in a vacuum, I think Miami's probably like a top quarter job, maybe a top half job in the ACC, right? Somewhere in that range, because it is South Florida and you can recruit to warm weather. And I'm sure that there's a lot of things that you're able to do outside of simply being a student athlete that would be quite enjoyable for somebody to want to go play there. But at the same time, like, I think that there is probably a reason why the Boozer twins, if you talk to most people, like in the recruiting circles, it felt like they were a significantly heavy lean towards Miami until the last second. And it makes you wonder, like, what happened there that made them decide to go elsewhere, right? Was it a monetary thing? And I get a little bit annoyed by the way that people have kind of reacted to the Jim Larrañaga retirement, right? Like, I don't understand why the entire pushback has been he's quitting on his team. Like, if this was a player, we'd be absolutely skewering him. Like, this might honestly be the best thing for some of those guys on that roster, right? Like, if Jim Larrañaga is 75 years old and he's exhausted, like he said he was, and he's at the point where he doesn't feel like he can do this anymore, and they've had a disastrous start to the year. Like, what are they, 4-8? Lost 8 of the last 9. They just lost to Mount St. Mary's at home. Like, if he's at the point where he can't do this and doesn't want to do this, and it's a negative for his roster, isn't the right thing to do to quit and to walk away? Because all of these guys, like, let's call it what it is. They might be making a couple $100,000 right now, some of the best players on that team, maybe more. That's not life-changing money. That's not like you're good, you're set for life money, right? All of these guys are going to have to get jobs somewhere afterwards. And I'm sure the majority of them would like to be able to do that playing maybe in the NBA, maybe in a high level professionally overseas, right? Maybe in a place where you can make 7 figures on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean. Maybe if you're end up with a G League, 2A, whatever it is, you got to find a way to be able to make a living in basketball. And no one's going to look at teams that are 4-8 and say, hey, we got to get all of these guys on our roster. We got to find a way to be able to get these guys into our franchise and into our organization. So if Jim Larrañaga is not bought in, the best thing for the players is to walk away and let somebody that actually loves what they're doing and wants to do it every single day when they wake up, go in there and take over the program. Like, he's 75 years old, man. It's a different era. You know, it sucks that it drove the likes of Tony Bennett and the likes of Coach K and the likes of Roy Williams and some of these all-time greats out of the sport. But, you know, he's 75. He was going to retire pretty soon anyway. Like, what are we even talking about here? I just, the way that narrative kind of popped up really frustrated me.
Sweeney, in terms of what's next for that job, who makes sense? Is there a candidate or 2 or 3 that makes sense that you might look at?
Yeah, look, it's going to be coveted, if nothing else, because you get an opportunity to get paid $3 million a year to live in Miami. Like, that's a pretty darn good selling point. I think names to watch. Richard Pitino is one name I would circle. Obviously, it's had success in New Mexico. The Pitino family has a lot of ties down in South Florida. Richard had been in the state of Florida when he was with Billy Donovan at Florida. There's enough connections there that he makes a lot of sense. Will Wade would be someone that I would be interested in if he's interested in making the move back up from McNeese to a higher level. That's someone I would dig into, because if I know, if nothing else, like, we're going to get players right away and have an opportunity to win early. And in an ACC where there's been so much turnover, I would feel good that if I hire Will Wade, I can be in the mix to make the tournament in year 1. And then there's a ton of really good mid-major coaches out there in the South. Bob Ritchie and Bucky McMillan in the SoCon. Alan Huss at High Point has done a phenomenal job. You could look at Ryan Odom, who's been really, really good at VCU. If George Washington continues to have success this year, Chris Caputo, who was a former assistant of Larrañaga, maybe he's in the conversation. So, there no shortage of suitors. People will want this thing, and I don't know that they can pull a sitting high major coach, but they could certainly get one of the best mid-major names on the market.
Rod, did you have a thought on that just before we get to toast on who they should look at? Who they target?
Sweeney just kind of he got to all the names. I'm going to be very curious to see who ends up taking the dive on Will Wade, because there's no doubt in my mind that Will Wade is going to end up being like a very, very good high major head coach again one day. He's still like 41 years old. Yeah, he's already been. He's 41 years old. He's had success everywhere he goes. And you know he's going to get players. You know he's going to turn your program. Like, look at what he's doing at McNeese State of all places, man. Like, he's just going to get dudes. He's going to put together a roster for you, and you're going to win right away. And it might come with some other stuff, but you know what? Sometimes it doesn't really matter. It's Miami. What are we talking about, man? It's Miami. Are they worried about baggage? I don't think that they are. Is something, have they all of a sudden become like this saintly, perfectly clean program in the last like 12 years? And I'm not just talking about basketball, right? We're talking about it.
Yeah.
Didn't they have a whole Ponzi scheme?
Nevin Shapiro. Nevin Shapiro, man.
Like, he doesn't even need to be in the shadows anymore. We've had Nevin Shapiro. We've had John Ruiz.
Free Nevin Shapiro.
Man, what are we doing? What are we talking about here? You got to go get Will Wade.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. Okay, so you're putting the gavel down for Will Wade and Coral Gables. I like it. I like that a lot. All right, well, let's kick it off. It's been a fun show, Sweeney. Let's get to toast of the night, man. Who's getting your toast?
Ed Cooley and Georgetown have done a phenomenal job, but one of his former assistants, Ivan Thomas, has done a heck of a job at Hampton. They beat Howard today in a big HBCU showcase game live, big CBS game. They're 8-5. That's their win total from last year. They're headed to the new year with a winning record for the first time in 14 years. Shout out to the Hampton Pirates. Cheers.
That was cheers to that. That was a program that was picked at the bottom of the CAA this year, and it's nice to see them have a little bit of success. I was going to go with Ed Cooley and Georgetown for their 11-2 start in non-conference play, but I'm just going to switch it up because you already went that direction. I'm going to go with Boise State with the Broncos. Tyson Degenhart had 26 points tonight. But that's not really the story there. The story is that this is a dude that has struggled mightily with his three-point shooting this year. He came into this game shooting 17% from three, right? And then missed his first four tonight. And it's been a thing, man. It's been a thing. It's very clearly in his head. And then he ripped off four threes in a row, one at the end of the first half, and then three in a row at the start of the second half as Boise State went on the road to San Jose State and took down the Fighting Tim Miles, that program. So my toast, Tyson Degenhart, Boise State Broncos, 2-0 start in Mountain West play.
Love it. I'll cap it off with a toast to Kobe Rogers with 28 points tonight, and absolutely had to have almost all of them just because of, it was not Tyrese Hunter's best game. One off of a career high for him today against Ole Miss with 28 against 6-3. So Kobe Rogers did his job today. Toast. I'm a big fan of people doing their jobs. I really am. You guys left me hanging, by the way. You guys didn't even drink. What kind of shit is that?
I mean, look. What are you drinking a Sprite, man?
Terrible.
What are we doing here?
That's terrible. Is that what we're doing here? Like, one guy toasts and nobody else drinks? I mean, what kind of toast is that? That's bullshit. All right.
I was just busy bringing up John. I don't know if you've seen this yet. Have you seen Sweeney's Halloween costume from this year? He's a big Atlanta Braves guy.
Yeah,
you seen this?
It's a good costume.
Shout out Freddie Freeman.
Sweeney, where did that come from?
Is that Freddie Freeman?
That's Freddie Freeman's rookie year. Yeah.
Oh my God.
He is blown up. Shout out to Freddie, man. Shout out to Freddie.
Yeah. He went from being the guy that looked like Kevin Sweeney to being the guy that hit the first walk-off grand slam in the history of the World Series.
If you look like Kevin Sweeney, you don't have to get facial reconstruction surgery. Like, it was fine before. It was fine before, but no. In all seriousness, fellas, it's been a fun night. Thanks to Penny Hardaway for joining us on the show.
Freddie Freeman is better than Buzz from Home Alone. I'll tell you that much.
Cheers to
that. He's richer.
That's true.
For Rob Dauster, for Kevin Sweeney, a.k.a. Freddie Freeman, a.k.a. Buzz from Home Alone. I'm John Martin. Thanks for being with us. Catch us soon here at Field of 68 after